Welcome back to the Wilson Brothers channel. I'm Isaac. This is David. Piers Morgan has been on a tangent recently, interviewing the most interesting people in the world. He just interviewed Andrew Tate. We just reacted to that. He's on to his brother now, Tristan Tate.
Brother. I like
James Bond lookalike.
He actually is way better of a talker than Andrew.
Yeah, I have to agree. He's very eloquent. The way he comes across is a lot more respectful, not as aggressive as his brother. But they do complement each other very well. Their dynamic is interesting.
Oh, 100%.
We're going to dive right into the interview, so make sure to subscribe and like for more videos.
Let's go.
Tristan, first of all, your reaction to that extraordinary interview I just finished with your brother.
I think that was one of the best interviews ever conducted with Andrew. I don't know how hard you're going to go on me, so perhaps I'm making a mistake saying this. I like how you challenge your guests. I like how you seem to have a very impartial opinion on people. You don't judge things one way or another before you go into the interviews. And I think that made the interview with Andrew very interesting. I'm very excited to see the public response.
I mean, like I said to him, I'm not here to convict you or otherwise. I don't know if you're guilty or not of the charges laid against you. We'll establish that in a trial. Or otherwise. I mean, it may not even go to trial.
No, it might not.
I mean, it seems to me there's been an interesting relaxing of restrictions against you and your brother, really, from the time you were put in prison at the start of the year. What do you read into that?
Well, if you understand how the Romanian justice system works, again, I have to be very careful what I say. The pressure to put us in jail comes from not organizations. There are many great people who work at organizations like DCOT, which is the organization investigating us, but it comes from individual prosecutors who I am very much a trophy for, I would say. So the absolute obsession with putting me in jail comes from these people, but these people have nothing to do with judges, you see. At the end of the day, if you investigate me for a year and a half, throw me in jail, drag my name through the mud, eventually you're gonna have to come up with a file of evidence and show it to a judge. So the people who keep letting me go are the people who've seen that file of evidence and don't have a motivation to keep me in jail. So that's it broken down as simply as I can.
I like how Tristan started out with honor.
Yeah.
You know, honoring Piers' journalistic integrity.
Even though he went after Andrew.
Yeah, well, he had to, because Andrew naturally is very aggressive in the way that he comes across, and he knows how to push people's buttons, and so does Piers. I'm really curious to see how Tristan combats Piers' questions, because
I love Piers, man.
Because Piers is very aggressive. His interview style as a journalist is very, I'm going to interrupt you while you're talking. I'm going to use what you say against you. I'm going to make sure that you back up what you say with logic and with analysis that's actually positive towards whatever, you know, is being called out against you. Obviously, they went to prison.
Yeah,
so.
Tristan's very respectful. It's the one thing Piers just said is about how, you know, he's not going to come to conclusions before a trial.
Yeah.
Even now, even if you have a trial, if the judge hates you or the jury hates you, it doesn't mean you're always guilty just because they decide to make you guilty. It just depends on the judicial system, but I don't know.
Yeah, Romanian judicial system is very different from the judicial system in the United States. In the United States, you would have a DA, which would not necessarily, they try to argue in the affirmative of if you're guilty or not. The prosecutor in Romania is actually, I found out with his case, is actually trying to decide the truth given all the evidence.
That's so refreshing, because in the U.S., they'll do whatever it takes to convict you. So.
Well, a lot of it's politically driven.
Yeah,
because we have a bigger judicial system over there. It's a little bit more of a harsh, penalized society. They're a lot more conservative.
That's good to know.
In the BBC report of the prosecution files, they quote you as saying about the women who worked on your webcam business, I'm going to slave these I'm going to make them work even more hours and hours and hours. I work these like slaves, slave work, minimum 10 or 12 hours a day.
That is not true at all. So
you never said that?
No.
Or you said it sarcastically?
No, I didn't say it sarcastically at all. That is about my ex-girlfriend cleaning my house. So what you have to understand is when you go through a man's phone, you have 4 years and hundreds of thousands, millions of messages to everyone he's ever spoken to. Now, this is about human trafficking, my accusation. So anyone coerced, anyone forced, anyone tied up, anyone kidnapped, anyone sold, anyone moved, none of that is in any of my WhatsApp conversations. But DCOT and the prosecutor essentially can eliminate parts of the conversation that he says are not relevant. Now, if you look at the timings between the messages on all these conversations that look very bad, he's deleting various things, a lot of LOLs and a lot of ha-has, because believe me, if you were to read mine and my brother's conversations, even right now, you could probably accuse me of conspiracy to commit murder.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Just because it's locker room talk between you and your boys and a WhatsApp conversation still doesn't take away from the fact that he demeaned women in the way he was talking.
That was disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right? Calling them the B word, calling basically a dog. That's what the B word is, right? You're calling a woman a dog just because she's your ex and she cleans your house doesn't give you the right to demean and talk down to women. We on this channel are very affirmative of the fact that we will never demean or talk down to women because they're equal to us in value.
Remind me again, was that found through a private text message?
So this conversation was a WhatsApp conversation between him and his boys that the Romanian judicial system found when they confiscated his assets, his phone. And so they went through, hundreds of thousands of messages in WhatsApp, but it's very easy to take things out of context in those conversations.
I mean, dude, depending on what group I'm around, like if I'm around my boys, I let stuff slip. And maybe not to that. I don't say that about women, just so you know, but we'll say things that are ultra aggressive because we have a trust in each other. We'll say things.
Yes, but it doesn't take away the fact that he was in a loving relationship with this woman. This is the way he talked about her.
So from a moral standpoint, correct. But from a legal standpoint, that should have nothing to do with this case.
So they took it out of context and they basically said that it was involved in the trafficking
you can't
allegations.
You can't put somebody in prison for that.
Yeah.
Stop the stupid things that we talk about. I was talking about...
Conspiracy to commit murder.
I mean, Andrew, I'm going to kill you when I get home. Like things like this, which can be used, in a very negative way.
But you accept you've used language about women.
Loads. I've used worse language. But
how do you feel about that? Now it's all been laid bare.
Well, it's very unfortunate that I think this conversation is 3 years old. I think our house was messy after a party, and I was saying, "Oh yeah, she's my slave. Don't worry, I'll get her working."
Do you regret using language like that?
No, I don't, because
really,
well, last week my daughter's mother sent me a photo of her drawing on the wall with crayons. And I said, ha ha ha, I'm going to kill her when I get home. Now, you could delete the ha 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 because you feel that's irrelevant because you're the prosecutor, and you can arrest me and all my friends and throw me in jail for conspiracy to commit the murder of children. You could do that if you wish. That's not the way I meant it.
No, but I'd ask a different question.
Yes.
I would say, when your daughter grows up,
yes,
how would you like it if another man spoke about your daughter by saying, I'm going to slave the I'm going to make her work even more hours and hours. I work this like a slave. If someone said that and you saw it actually in a message they sent about your daughter, how would you feel?
Well, that's not the best message to have sent, and there's lots of
so you regret
talk.
It?
I regret that.
You either regret it or you don't.
No, I don't. I regret that it became public because the way men speak to each other.
You regret that it became public. That's not.
So you only regret that you were found out.
Yeah, it's like
you don't regret the actual message. And the thing is, I have to give it to Tristan a little bit here.
He's more apologetic.
More apologetic than Andrew. Yeah. Andrew would say, "No, I never regret it. I do 1,000 push-ups to make up for it."
He thought about it. Do you see that?
He's like,
and he's probably thinking in the back of his head, "What would Andrew tell me to say?"
It's the same thing. If you are political, or if you are a leader, an influencer, everything that you say could come out into the light for the public eye. Especially for us, as this channel's growing, we're becoming more well known. People are starting to actually watch our content. We have to be very aware of what we're saying on and off the camera. Your private life is a reflection of your public life. And it goes both ways. You cannot say something offline that you would not be willing to say online.
Yeah, and nothing makes me more mad than I like what Piers said, because he said, how you treat your family, specifically your daughter, is how they will learn to be treated.
Yes.
And so when I hang out with some people, not close friends of mine, but some people, and I see them yelling at their kids or cursing at their kids or saying all these things, I'm saying, why? If you would not be okay with a stranger or the guy that she's in a relationship someday doing that, so why would you be okay with saying that to your own daughter?
Or even posting on a public platform like Twitter, X now. If you post a tweet and the whole world can see it however they want to see it, and there's a certain language behind it, your daughter one day that you're raising will be on and see that.
Yeah.
If, for example, any content that we post, your niece one day is going to see the content that we post and say, Daddy really said that? Mm-hmm. Is that the way I'm supposed to look at men? Is that how a masculine, strong man is supposed to act? And
girls look for guys that are like their fathers, and sons look for wives that are like their mothers. It's because how they are treated growing up is how they learn what relationships should be.
Yeah.
So be careful about what you say.
Well, to him, I think to the Tates, they think if they were to apologize, then it would make them look weak, which is not the sign of a strong man. If I am wrong about something, I have to say that I'm wrong, and I have to have honor and comment with mercy and humility and say, you know what, I'm not perfect. I don't always get it right.
I don't. I regret that it became public because, you know, the way men speak to each other, if I were to go through all of your WhatsApp messages, I don't know what I'd find. And I also
you wouldn't mind if a man spoke that way about your daughter when she's older, you wouldn't mind? Or you wouldn't mind?
Of course I would mind, but it depends on the context of the relationship.
Do you think it's disrespectful?
The girl I was talking about cleaning my house at the time, I'm no longer with her. And also, this conversation is not about anyone who's listed as a victim in the file, which is a very important distinction to make. The girl I was talking about, I was very in love with at the time. I had a very great relationship with at the time. You know, if you say to your girlfriend, oh, come here, I'm going to spank you. That's not, you know, if you're her co-worker or you're a man who's stalking her, it's a very different context to if you're her boyfriend.
The problem is that in the context of what you've been accused of...
Yes, the prosecutor can make it look bad.
This looks damning.
Of course, but what he doesn't do is he doesn't show the whole conversations to any judge. That is a carefully manipulated and edited and actually constructed conversation, as all of the conversations are.
This whole lover boy thing, right? The suggestion is that you and Andrew, basically, you're two good-looking, fast-talking, smart guys, right? And you've, you know, had plenty of money and you've enjoyed yourselves, fine.
Yes.
And that you've managed to, deliberately or otherwise, but the suggestion is deliberately, persuade a lot of women to fall in love with you very quickly, and then you use that relationship and how they feel about you to then guide them towards making money from webcams.
Well, that's interesting. Of the 7 women that you've listed, none of which we can name, do you know how many of them ever worked at my old webcamming business I had many years ago? Of the 7 victims listed, how many of them were in any way related to any of the activities I did when I ran a webcam studio? The answer, Piers, you'd be surprised to know, is 0. People on the internet, I call them Twitter detectives, not the police. Not DCOT, not even this over-ambitious prosecutor, because there are webcam studios all over the city, has tried to make any criminal complaint about that small business that me and Andrew, as he said, dipped our toe in. I was mainly running it, to be fair, all those years ago. None of these people who are alleged victims today have anything to do with the webcam studio. But if you watch clips on Twitter, when we speak as a 24-year-old, vulgarly, oh yeah, you know, I'm pimping because I'm in the club with a bunch of girls. You know, when we speak that way, it's easy to say, oh, look, he's admitted, he's confessed to his crimes. The old webcam studio and the current investigation have 0 strings in between them.
Yeah, this is kind of what Andrew's already said in the recent reaction we did, that it doesn't have any correlation because there is a difference between what is morally correct as to what is legally correct.
But it doesn't change the fact that they did that.
Oh, no, it's 100% wrong.
Right?
I mean,
they're trying to make a moral equivalency of saying, oh, that was 7 to 10 years ago, then just say it was 7 to 10 years ago. Right? If you're trying to justify all the 7 alleged victims didn't actually do the webcam business, doesn't mean that a bunch of other women's lives are messed up as a result.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is there's a difference between what is morally wrong and what is legally wrong, because what he's saying is those are different than what the legal charges are.
Yeah.
Because yes, having a webcam business is, I would never do that. My reputation is too important to me, and for spiritual reasons, I would never do that. To do that at that time was legal. So you have to have...
But not moral.
It's not moral.
Have you ever coerced women?
No, I've never coerced anybody into doing anything they don't like.
Do you accept them, as I said to Andrew, that some of the language, even in the things he tweets now, suggests that his idea of how women should be treated is that they effectively are a form of slave to a man?
You know, Piers, I really like you. And I sometimes feel you fall for Andrew's little traps. And it's really wonderful to watch because it's not the things he says. It's the way he says them. And the way he...
We called it.
We did call it.
We called it. We literally, on our previous reaction video with Andrew Tate, called it. We're like...
I want to see, though, how Tristan tries to justify this behavior.
But, ladies and gentlemen, we read Andrew Tate like a book. Apparently, Piers couldn't.
Psychological analysis states that sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, and I think we were right in this situation.
We were right.
Says them can get people very riled up. When I was sitting listening to your interview about women shouldn't work and be taken care of, etc., it actually took me back about 12 or 13 years to an interview I saw, I can't remember, I think it was on ITV, with the late Christopher Hitchens. You probably knew him.
I did.
I did not know Christopher Hitchens. I think he died way before I became relevant. But he was sitting there with this female journalist, and he's saying, his exact words were, oh, I don't want Mrs. Hitchens to be coarsened in the labor market. Why would I want my women coarsened in the labor market? No, if she's with me, she can work if she wants, but she doesn't have to. Now, he was not labeled the world's biggest misogynist. He was actually hailed as an intellectual in his time. I read all of his books. I used to be a big fan of his. But
that's a false
he said
equivalency.
exactly the same thing Andrew said.
That's a false equivalency, though.
What is?
What he's saying is just because somebody 13 years ago said something different than or something similar to what Andrew Tate says doesn't make what Andrew said right.
No, he's just saying that there was a double standard. That
Pierce didn't call that guy out, but he's calling Andrew out.
Yeah, that people didn't judge that guy.
Let's see what Andrew...
They held him as a hero while the Tates are getting destroyed for
Let's see what Piers says.
Exactly the same thing with different intonations and different tones. And you probably knew him. You didn't attack him back then for saying that, did you?
Well, I'm not here to judge.
He could get people riled up.
Tristan is no longer with us, sadly. He was a brilliant man in many ways. I disagree with him about many things, but he's not why I'm here, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
It just seems to me that the rhetoric, particularly by Andrew, but also some of the stuff they found with you, the way that you talk about women may be part of the problem you found yourselves in here. And from Andrew's recent tweeting, there's no sign to me that he is aware or self-aware of quite how some of this stuff comes over.
I understand.
And that maybe that has been part of the problem here with you guys.
Well, again, when you look at Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate and you try to label them misogynists, you gender the argument. If I were accused of anything else and they were to read the conversations, which they did read, by the way, between me and my friends, the insults we give each other, the threats we make to each other.
Do you think a woman's place is at home serving her man?
No. I believe my woman's place is at home serving her family. I serve my family.
But she shouldn't go to work.
What's the difference?
Serving family as opposed to man? As opposed to
no, but he's saying
man?
Serving his family. Pierce is saying he's serving your husband.
If you say your wife's job is at home to serve your man, it sounds like, okay, you're his servant. But if you lay it in a way of serving your family, it's not as possessive.
Okay, let's see.
She wouldn't have to if she didn't want to. If I wanted her to and she wanted to and we agreed as a family.
If you wanted her to.
If we agreed as a family.
What if you don't want her to but she does?
Well, in the same way that if I was working a normal job and I got a promotion, that would mean that I move out of the city or we move as a family, we'd sit there and discuss it as a family. I don't believe that there's one rule for every single family. I don't see...
Yeah, but Andrew does.
I don't see in the future my woman working, no. Because I think I could take care of my woman and I could take care of my family.
You wouldn't be... I don't think you'd be with a woman who wanted to work, right?
I've been with women who worked.
And how did that go?
Wonderfully. I've had some absolutely wonderful relationships.
Well, doesn't that prove the point? That this whole idea a woman has to stay at home and serve her man is actually a lot of cobblers.
Again, I don't think serve her man was something Andrew specifically said. I would phrase
Well, he did. I mean, that's why I read that whole tweet.
Well, Andrew's not me and I'm not Andrew. What I would say is a woman serves her family.
Are you different in your outlook on that?
Me and Andrew are very different. Me and Andrew are very different people.
Rolling Stone, in a profile, said this about
Rolling Stone.
Their relationship dynamic is very odd. It's like Tristan is held captive by Andrew and believes or follows everything Andrew says or does.
I don't believe or follow a lot of things that Andrew says or does. I get asked every single day to counter. E.J. Dickinson is this woman's name. I can tell you some horrible stories about the people who she's harassed and bothered, this Rolling Stone woman. The things Andrew says and does, I mean, I get asked...
What don't you like about his views?
Well, the major one, when people say, oh, Tristan, now that you've converted to Islam, I'm like, I haven't converted to Islam. Who says I converted to Islam? No, I'm an Orthodox Christian. I have not converted to Islam.
What do you think of his conversion?
I think that it's not my place to even comment on it. Now, some of the greatest religious discussions I have had have been with Andrew since his reversion, since him reading the Quran, most of it, of which he covered in prison. And we sit there and discuss these various ideas, but I believe that individual religious conviction is exactly that. It's individual. And I don't believe whether I'm his brother, whether I'm his son, mother, uncle, I have no place to tell him what his religious conviction should be.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. My thoughts are, here's the thing. Yes, Andrew has turned over a new leaf. In the sense of he converted to Islam, he seems to be more, in touch with his faith. He seems to be a lot more measured in his comments and what he says. But the problem is that he's putting off double standards all the time. When he goes on interviews and he talks about being a masculine man and being strong and providing for your family and being a man of integrity and character, which is what we preach on this channel, and then going on Twitter and saying all those things about women that are demeaning to women and talking down to them with a specific tonality that he knows exactly what he's doing to get a rise out of certain people, which includes Piers Morgan. That sets up a standard of saying who is the real Andrew Tate. Yeah. And then his brother has to come on an interview and defend him.
Yeah, and it says that article said that Tristan is held captive by Andrew.
I don't believe that at all. I think they're very different men.
The
problem is, though, is Tristan has to pick up a lot of the what's the word? The collateral damage.
Yeah. Tristan is a lot more amiable than Andrew. He's a lot easier to chat with. He's less controversial. He even says that, you know, in a family, they'll make decisions together. If he got a job offer at some random place, you know, 5 hours away, whatever, he's going to ask, they're going to have a discussion together. It's not, oh, just pack your bags and follow me wherever. They're having a conversation. And he said that when it comes to his wife working, they'll have the same kind of conversation.
Which is more in line with what we believe.
Yeah, that the man and woman will make decisions together.
Yes.
If my house is on fire, I make the decision.
Yes.
But overall speaking, the man and woman are partners, which is what we agree. So I think that Tristan is more in line with that than Andrew. Andrew, the way he words things. But I like what Tristan said. He said that Andrew just says things to rile people up, but it's about how he says things.
Tonality is everything.
Tonality and your tact is so important.
The thing is that bothers me about Andrew is that he's so intelligent in the way that he communicates. He knows if he wasn't that intelligent, I wouldn't question him so much. But the way he communicates, he knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah. This isn't his first rodeo with his communication style. He goes out there and he intentionally starts fires to try to get a rise out of people.
It's so
true. It's unfortunate because he could have a much broader, more strong impact on men if he didn't do it that way.
People often say, and it's certainly true from people I've interviewed over the years, that you're a product of your environment, particularly of your parents.
Yes.
In a November 2011 Facebook post, your father, Emery, wrote that the eternal problem of the alpha male was protecting his flock of women. He said, "The times I struck a woman, brackets in passion, I never left a mark, no trace, hyper control, super control of a human animal. They love me still."
I've never heard that before in my life. Wow. I'm smiling, man, because I can imagine his voice saying it.
You can.
I can imagine his voice saying it. The only times I've struck a woman, in brackets, in passion. Have you ever struck a woman in passion, Piers?
No.
You haven't?
No.
Not a little spank?
Well,
once.
Let's keep this above board.
I want to, Piers, but I'm saying, like, I understand how you're trying to phrase this.
No, I don't
and
understand.
Again, my father is dead and can't defend himself.
I'm not trying to phrase it in any way. I'm just curious what you think he meant by that.
I honestly don't know. I mean, keep in mind, my father died when I was 27, and that post was written a long time ago. I've never heard it before. I've never seen it before.
But what kind of father was it in terms of the values he instilled in you and Andrew?
Oh, he was a wonderful man, and he was a very protective man over his family and the people he cared about. I mean, they got divorced many, many years ago, but even with his dying breath, he would have jumped in to fight 10 men to defend my mother and her honor. That's the kind of guy he was, super protective and super, involved in everyone he loves life, even if he was far away. The phone calls were constant, the emails were constant, and he held us very accountable as young men.
Andrew tweeted last year, "My dad was a chess genius, CIA operative. My mother was a dinner lady. They had nothing in common. Dad said she fed you boys healthy meals every day, cleaned the house, and was largely quiet. I loved her very much. That's literally all men want."
Are you asking if that's an accurate description of my parents' relationship?
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah. But my mother was a wonderful mother. See, I don't think.
But they split up.
Of course they did. But that doesn't. Well,
so when he says that's literally all men want,
they split up way before I was old enough to understand marriage or sexual or male or female dynamics. By the way, so I can't even comment on their marriage. What I can comment on is how they were as parents. And what I will say is, I don't look back on my childhood raised on a council estate. On state benefits, I was free school lunches. I don't look back on that and think, oh, my mother was a terrible mother because we didn't have any money. Because I don't think it was my mother's job to, I guess, provide as much as my father was doing his best from the United States. But I will look back and say my mother was an absolutely wonderful mother.
His father, Emery, would hit his woman, whatever, but make sure not to leave a mark? Is that what he said?
Here's the thing, man. Words matter. They really do. I know. There's the proverbial saying, "Actions speak louder than words." But in this situation, out of the heart, the mouth speaks.
When you're a social media influencer, words matter.
Just a man in general.
Yeah.
Words matter. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Correct.
When you say certain things, regardless of if you're an amazing dad like Tristan is claiming, that his dad was the most epic, could do no wrong type of dad. Both of him and Andrew both believe that. Actions speak louder than words, but words matter. They come out of the heart. You have to be accountable for your words. When you say certain things and then don't apologize for it or don't take accountability, then you're setting a precedence and inviting men into a dirty bathwater type situation where, yeah, come drink the water, come drink the Kool-Aid, but it's 98% pure, but it's about 2% dirty. So let's just make sure that, you drink the water, drink what I'm offering. That's not the point. The point is it's 2% dirty. You cannot throw the 2% out just to appease the 98%.
I completely agree with what you said. What do you think about what he said? His father said, men just want a woman that will feed their kids, and be pleasant, or what was it that he said?
Yeah, just be quiet.
Just be quiet.
It's a trauma response.
What do you think about that?
It's a trauma response. I'm very curious to see how his dad was raised.
Yeah.
What was his dynamic like with his father? Tristan's grandfather. Did his grandfather beat his dad? Did they have a good fatherly bond relationship? Because when you're raised by a good father, which we both have, you are taught to honor and cherish your wife. And you also want to hear her perspective. You want to invite her in to make those really good decisions. You want a partner, not a slave. And having a slave is be quiet, don't say anything. You speak when you're spoken to. Otherwise, be quiet and just raise the kids and not do anything else.
Well, that's the thing. If that's the case, then every wife is interchangeable.
Exactly.
I could just find another woman that does, which is what they've done. Yeah, I could just find another woman that does exactly.
Neither of them are married.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they have mother of their kids, but that's it.
That doesn't matter though, because when you have, it's not that it doesn't matter. When you have a covenant where you say, until death do us part, in the good times and the bad, I will be there for you. You're making a covenant and a vow to say, I'm choosing you, and saying no to all the other ones. And the woman is saying that. Mm-hmm. The women, it's so much easier to find a man as a really attractive woman than it is as a man. So when that woman marries you and she's at that altar and she's walking down the aisle and she comes up to you, she is saying no to all the other men to say yes to you, and making a covenant before God for the rest of her life that she will be bonded to you.
No, 100%. And that's why.
And that's what doesn't match in this equation.
I chose a woman as my wife that would help me, that would push me to be better, and that would truly love me for who I am and just take care of my heart, but not let me settle for less. That would, as a team, we can go further than we can separately.
Yes.
I don't like this, that the man goes out and does everything, comes home, the woman just smiles and feeds you, and that's her only role.
And she gives you sex when you want it.
Yeah, I want to be able to make enough money where my wife doesn't have to work unless she wants to. I agree with them in that aspect, where if the woman chooses to work, great, but she doesn't have to, right? But I want a partner that whenever we have traumatic situation in life, a friend dies, whoever it can be, we move and we encourage each other. We push each other to be better. And that's something that in the whole Tate, family passing down from their dad, a relationship isn't seen in that way. And it's not healthy if it's not.
It's not.
I think it's fake.
You guys have preached a message of masculinity, and I'm all in favor of masculinity.
Great.
Many other people have categorized it as toxic masculinity because of the misogyny and so on. Do you feel that maybe you have collectively gone too far in the misogyny, and that has been, again, one of the reasons you find yourself in the problems you're in?
Well, again, when I say... First,
the kind of alpha male
what have I
rhetoric.
Said? What have I said that's misogynistic?
No, I'm just asking generally whether you feel that's part of the problem.
I don't think that's part of the problem. I don't think it is a problem at all. I think that when somebody has been speaking on the internet for a decade, you have to understand that, first of all, lots and lots of content is produced, and it's very easy to cherry pick and to take things out of context.
Sure.
And number two, the man speaking on the internet 10 years ago is not the man sitting and being interviewed by you today. Who I was when I was 25, I fancied myself a bit of a dating coach, used to give people advice on how to meet women and how to pick. That's not how I live now. I'm 35, I'm not 25. You at 25, I'm sure, were vastly different than you are today. So, I don't think there's a problem with anything I've said, because I've never advocated for anything illegal. I've never advocated for any crime. I do not advocate for drugs. I do not advocate for violence. I do not advocate for any of these things. So if Andrew said that women can't drive as well as men once, it's very easy to jump on that and say this man is the world's biggest misogynist because he said X.
Well, that's actually why Andrew went viral, is that comment about women can't drive as good as men. That's what actually leaped him into who he is.
Can they?
I don't know. I don't think I'm educated on that enough to have a good educated answer. I think, There's more men NASCAR drivers than women. There's more men that do Formula One, but unfortunately, that is a very male-dominated sport. So there are a lot of really good NASCAR drivers that are women. Yeah. There are a lot of professional drivers that are as well. It just depends on what your interests are. I think it's cars and muscle cars and engine oil and it's more masculine.
I think I don't really think that matters. I like what Tristan said about who he was 10 years ago doesn't represent who he is now. And this is very important. This is something that is one of my foundational beliefs about the Tates is that if you were judging them for 9 to 10 years ago, then you have to look at your own life and say, what have I done? Have I lived a perfect life? Because I know I haven't. Yes. If I'm judging people, it says you'll be judged as you judge. I don't want to judge people for everything they've done in their life. Yes, if they're still living that way, then we can call it out for what it is.
Take the needle out of your own eye.
We are not afraid to call people out. We're not going to sit here on the back and just be like, oh, well, we have to love everybody and respect everybody. No, I'm going to call you out if there's something that you're doing that's wrong. But I'm not going to sit on my high horse and pretend like I've lived a perfect life and judge people for something they did 10 years ago if they've changed.
Yes.
It's extremely important for that. So I like that he's acknowledging that.
Yeah.
That he is not the same person. He used to give people dating advice on how to take
which was horrible,
and how to take girls' virginity, which was horrible. So we don't, condone that at all. But at least he's saying he's changed.
Part of being a man is becoming accountable to your past life, though.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not going on an apology tour like Kevin Hart did.
Yeah.
It's saying, I made a decision when I was younger that it does not represent who I am today.
Exactly.
And becoming accountable is a part of growing. It's not just about, I have to apologize to appease the masses.
No.
It's I have to take accountability for my life.
Meaning it too.
Meaning it, having a heartfelt conversation and being a man of accountability. They talk about accountability all the time, the Tates do, right? The war room with, all these men that look up to them. And I really pray for them that they would take all of the disciplines that they have, and they talk about sexual discipline, finding the right person, settling down,
not watching porn anymore.
Not watching porn, having a family, don't masturbate, get out there and do the hard things. But the message, unfortunately, at times, to get those likes and reactions and get the people riled up can become convoluted. And that's why it's such an interesting psychological experiment with the Tates, and why a lot of men find them so fascinating is because they wrap up their message in a very interesting box.
Yeah.
And the wrapping paper sometimes sucks.
Well, we appreciate you guys watching this. I like hearing Tristan talk sometimes more than Andrew because he thinks things through. He thinks things through more before he talks, and he's a better communicator, and he's more amiable. It would be much easier to be in a relationship with him than I'm sure Andrew. But we want to hear your guys' opinion. Do you think that the Tates have changed, or that they are the same people that they've always been? Because we want to hear the community talk. We want to get your opinion. But if you enjoyed this video, you can check out our Andrew Tate and Piers Morgan reaction video right here. But we're coming out with video all the time, so don't forget to subscribe.
We'll see you guys later. Peace.
Peace.